Welcome back, mere mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews. I have number 10, Alex Rider by Anthony Horowitz, Russian Roulette. And interestingly enough, this does not follow the direct path of Alex Rider. This book by Anthony Horowitz is, in fact, a slight pivot, a slight new direction, but it is using and leveraging all the same characters that we once knew and loved. Now, I'll be going through the entire series of Alex Rider, written by Anthony Horowitz, and from 1 through to 9, they were the books that I read in my youth, right, all the way from roughly 11 years old to about 16, 17 years old. Loved it, loved reading them. I've talked about plenty of, I probably found a lot of reasons about why I train, my interactions and actions, and the way that I portray myself in the world. Probably a lot of that was picked up by these particular books. But the one I'm holding in my hand right now, Russian Roulette, came out in 2011. I never read it. I obviously, in a point in my life when I was more of a young adult at that point, that was reading different things, doing different things, going into university. And for whatever reason, number 10, number 11, number 12, and maybe even number 13, can't remember how many there are. I never got to read them. So now I'm reading these for the first time as a full blown adult with my own kids. And I just want to call out one particular piece and something that Karen called out was he was wondering, you know, uh, is there gonna be a level of disappointment to these books now reading them as an adult? Because as I was reading the previous books, I've read them before, and rereading them gave me a sense of nostalgia. I enjoyed it, kind of threw me back to the time that was when I was reading them, and again, I pulled out all the effective philosophies. You can go back and read them all, listen to them all as well if you'd like. And so this was a freshie, right? What was I gonna think of the book? Was it gonna be great? Well, I'll talk about that in the latter half, or around what I actually thought personally of the book. But I'm gonna lay out the story because it's very, very fresh in my mind. So, Russian Roulette is once again, relatively big book, about the same as the previous ones have been. It is as dark as the series kind of left off previously, but even maybe slightly darker. It actually focuses in on Yassen Grigorovich. You'll find out that that's not his actual name. He's actually named Yassen. I won't comment as to how it was that his name got disfigured and changed, but simple statement, he was disfigured when he was saying his name, and it was understood incorrectly. So the beginning portions of the book and the latter endings, the last couple of pages of the book, are all set in a scene of when Stormbreaker was happening. So the first initial book of the Alex Rider series, and so the beginning and the very end tie into moments that have happened before in the series prior to, and it's lovely just to see the connection from the Yassen Grigorovich, in Scorpia, the assassin, the cold-blooded assassin, the killer, the moves like a ballerina, if you remember the very various quotes and call outs of who this individual was. And so those two ends kind of tie into, Alex Rider, but then the book at large is really more a reflection of Yassen going through what has been his life. And it's beautiful to kind of see that, or interesting that Anthony Horowitz did this, where all the concern and the grief of Yassen and the way that he grew up all happened when he was 14 years old. So again, mirroring Alex Rider's beginning in MI6 and all the journey that Anthony Horowitz put him through as being 14 years old as well. So that mirroring, awesome, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on the philosophy as well to pull out. But you get to understand where the not the way that Alex Rider through the series got pulled into MI6, and he was left as a bit of more of a ghost of his former self and all of the action and adventures that he took, while it was not that it was he himself wanting to do it, although he said there was some definitely Alex Rider that wanted to, there's some that he didn't. Very much in this particular story was you see in the assassin Scorpio killer that it wasn't the case. It was absolutely out of just a need to survive, the way that he had to escape and watch as his family got killed, escaping the police that were trying to hunt him traveling all the way to Moscow, trying to find someone who was going to support him, having to sell all his family jewels and money, using up everything that he could, living on the streets for a little while, then having to get carted off and being not looked after, being made to work 24/7 basically at this just mafia big boss Russian guy, spent there a couple of years. He leaves and he understands the path in terms of him joining Scorpia. And again, Scorpia was actually sent off to kill this particular person who was owning Yassen, and that's how he ended up finding as well into Scorpia. Long story short, you get to also see how he interacts with Hunter, who's John Ryder, Alex Ryder's dad, and that part of the story was warming in the sense of, you get to see the connection to Alex Ryder and why he had the affinity to the individual, and then some of the challenges and the learnings and the things that he found out towards the tail end. What I found even more fascinating about this book was how John Ryder almost talked Yassine from being contract killer. He almost got away with it, but then right at the tail end, pivot happens. He found out something, and all of a sudden, he turns out to be the individual who we see today. And then at the very end, again, kind of connects in with the first part in the final bits of Stormbreaker, where him and Alex connect via the helicopter, say goodbye to each other, but now it's being seen from the perspective of Yassine of what's happening, why he lets him go, why he shoots the Herod Sale, who's a bad guy in that particular book. So wonderfully weaved, wonderful story, and again, reads probably much better honestly as an adult. Now let's get into what I think about it. Loved it, man, loved it. It wasn't a disappointment. It wasn't an issue. I didn't go through this book thinking, it's not nostalgic enough, or because I didn't read it prior, it wasn't a good read. No, man, it was a good read. It was a good damn read. The story itself was also a little bit darker, a little bit more raw, realistic. That realistic's probably a slightly interesting twinge, but it feels more realistic. It felt more halfway or three-quarters through this book, you actually feel for him. You feel for your scene of what's happened in his world. You understand why he's gotten to that position. Right at the tail end, he makes a decision to become a contract killer, to go on and do all these various things. But the pain that he goes through, and we talked about it in the previous book with Scorpio Rising, but again, there's a lot of physical pain that's demonstrated in this book, but also a lot of emotional pain. And there's a final moment where the scene decides, not that he's going to take his life, but he's going to do something which happened at the very beginning of the book when he was 14 years old. And if he survives this, fuck it. He was meant to be a contract killer. He does it. He doesn't die. So he says, okay, time to do what I've been set out to do. And he even calls it out throughout the book. It's not what his parents would have wanted to do. It wasn't what his friends would have wanted him to do when he was younger, but it was just a path that led him to be so. And that leads me to the philosophy, I guess, that I want to pull out of these books. Because again, these are youth books, youth adult fiction books, but you can always pull out some interesting things out of it. And the one that I pulled out as I was reading it through is just the mirror concept. And I say the mirror concept in that Alex Rider, 14 years old. Yassen Grigorovich, 14 years old. These two individuals, when they were 14, pretty dastardly, pretty horrible things happened to them. The parents, killed. Apologies. Alex already had parents that were dead, but at 14 years old, he had his dad's brother, Ian Ryder, pass away, and so he was kind of on his own with Jack. And at the same time, at 14 years old, Yassen lost his parents and his friends, everyone in the town that he lived, all the identity, everything, completely lost. And so they went on these kind of mirror paths where they were made to do things that are more suited to adults, more gruesome, more painful, again, physical and emotional. And this crucible that they went through jetted them out at the end into two very different positions. Now, by luck, by whatever, Alex Wright ended up being the individual who supported his country, did the right thing, didn't get persuaded by money, or he almost, there is the book Scorpia. He almost was pushed down the path of joining Scorpia, kind of like his dad was, but again, there was more double crossing that was happening there. In the end, Scorpio was trying to get rid of Alex Rider, trying to kill him as part of the Operation Invisible Sword, I believe it was called. And so, he was going to not really get done throughout the end, but Alex continued all the various books and reached a point where you could be seen as the hero, the good guy, the one that was able to save everything through all these challenges and crucibles. But mirroring that, Yassen went through all this pain and experience and having to survive and do all these crazy things to just get through. in a more prolonged period, because I guess the Alex Rider series, he goes from 14 to 15 years old, so it's a year and does, a ton load of things where Yassen had all this pain and problems for 4 years, 5 years. I think the book goes from him being 14 through to 19, and then obviously to the current date of whatever age he is when the Stormbreaker book is happening. So it is more prolonged pain, it's more extended. It's You'd almost say it's even worse than some of the things Alex Rider had happened to him. But again, by the fortune of just luck or the way that things happened, the mirror concept, he turned away. He unfortunately went down the darker path. He had to do certain things that, while the skill sets matched, he, by conversations with John Ryder, Alex's dad, by the positions that he put himself, by the playing of Russian roulette, which happens not just once but twice in this particular book, and it landing him in positions to carry him to the next steps, unfortunately, is what made him what he is. I guess the other concept, actually, and interestingly enough, going back to some of the original reasons why I like this book, is that just like Alex Rider, in reading this, you kind of learn of the building up of character that Yassen goes through in terms of towards the latter part of the book, when he out of this, I think it's called the dacha, or his prison for 3 or so years in Russia. He starts doing a lot of running and fitness, and he does this in Malagosto, which is the Scorpia training ground, but also does so with John Ryder when they're out and about in Paris and a few other places. And again, it made me warm and fuzzy in the sense of, not just the skill sets, but it's the physical fitness and the wellness aspect that, it's introduced into his books that makes them a larger than life character, and, their amazing prowess or ability to be disciplined or meditation, or all these various things. I took away being like, oh, it strengthened me in the, I want to do more of that, because it makes you almost a superhuman, like some of these characters that get described in this particular book are. So, are you gonna enjoy reading these books if you used to read all the Anthony Horowitz, Alex Rider series, and you haven't read them before, like my co-host? Hell yes. Honestly, you would really enjoy it. The connectivity back to the previous older books, awesome, wonderful, because I just got so recently, over the last couple of months, done reading them. It was so fresh and so good. If you picked this up completely fresh without knowing all the prior history of the Alex Rider sort of novels, you'd probably still be able to enjoy the book for sure, because of the action and the pace of it. But because it's slightly slower pace and has so many connection points to previous things that have happened in the Alex Rider series, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't at least gone through a bit of an understanding of the previous books and what the Alex Rider story was all the way through, to then read this and go, it's filled in some gaps. So, Anthony Horowitz, love the book. And again, the back here says, what does it take to make a killer? And I think you very much find out in a mirroring concept of what happened to Yassen Grigorovich and what made him the killer that he was. I'll leave it there, mere mortal lights. I hope you're well. I hope you're reading. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I hope you're having a lovely time wherever you are in the world. For now, mere mortal lights 1, out.